Hi, my name's Harry Reid, and thank you so much for listening to the Authorised podcast. Today's episode had a number of audio issues on my end, so I'm going to pre-apologise for that, but I hope you enjoy the episode. And I want to thank Genesis for taking the time to jump over and talk to me. I really appreciate it. You can jump to the description below to find all our details. Thank you so much.
3, 2, 1. I'm Harry Reardon. You're listening to the Authorised podcast. Thank you so much for joining us. Genesis, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hey everyone, my name is Genesis Amaris Kemp. I am the author of Chocolate Drop in Corporate America, From the Pit to the Palace, a creative content writer, visionary, motivational speaker, and inclusion and diversity enthusiast, currently residing in Houston, Texas, and I am super passionate about helping people really tap into their purpose and fuel their passion.
And how did this start for you? What kickstarted this journey?
Just being in a toxic work environment, facing bullying at a young age, also just writing. Writing was very therapeutic for me, and it was a gift that I had all along, but had it not been for the trials and tribulations that I endured while working in corporate America, it wouldn't have ignited and fueled my passion to write my first book, and then recently released the second edition of the book.
And what did you do? What was your corporate job?
I was involved in the oil and gas and energy sector, so I had various roles that I had, some of which were starting at the very bottom, such as an imaging clerk, project coordination, HSC, which is health, safety, environmental compliance, trade regulations, raw material coordinator for polypropylene. So I spent 11 and a half years in the oil and gas and energy sector. I started my journey working for a smaller mom and pop company. They were UK based. And then I went over to work for a Fortune 500 company.
And what sort of toxic sort of things were you dealing with?
So I was dealing with the fact that, one, when I went to the Fortune 500 company, I was always the only African American person on my team. So I felt discrimination. I felt workplace bullying in a sense from whenever I had two female bosses that were not the nicest to me. And there were other things that went along with that I'm not going to get into because it'll be a whole nother conversation. I also had the pay disparity where I was the youngest person on my team. A lot of the times I was mentioning the only African American person on my team. My pay was substantially lower in comparison to my peers, and it wasn't until 7 years later where they finally gave me the pay increase that I asked for and that I deserved. But the pay increase only came after the whole Black Lives Matter movement, whenever I spoke out about some of the unfairness and injustice that I saw in the workplace.
So you took you 7 years to get a pay rise?
Yeah, well, I got little pay raises along the way, right? But whenever we're talking about getting a 20% salary increase, that is a big jump in your salary. So it just lets you know, if you're thinking about it logically, if you go from hearing, oh, you're not due for a promotion for 2 years, or you're not due for another salary treatment for 2 years, and then after you speak out during a vice president's meeting, all of a sudden you get a big pay jump such as 20%, and lets you know how much I was underpaid in comparison to my peers. Because 20% during a global pandemic last year, when companies were laying off, businesses were closing down, like, if you think about it, it's like, wow. So I felt
Absolutely. Yeah, so I was just talking to someone about the AMC theatres. They laid off 30,000 staff members, and then gave their boss, who's on $9 million a year, a £4 million or $4 million bonus as a thank you for what he's done. And you're like, you split that up between 30,000 members of the people that were laid off. It's not a lot of money, but they would rather have $100, $200 in the bank than not at all. So you do see that kind of gap that makes it's disgusting. It really is.
It is disgusting.
So what was the decision?
No, I was saying it is disgusting because it not not only just happens to African Americans, but it happens to people all over the spectrum, whether you're a woman working in a male-dominated field, whether you're a man who's working in maybe a feminine environment, whether, you know, you're a foreigner working for an American company. There are so many different ways that people face discrimination that it's ridiculous. And whenever we talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, if a company is really saying this is what we offer, but you don't see it evident in and throughout the company, it almost makes you wonder, is this company really upholding their morals, their values, and etc., or are they just placating what they want the media and people outside of the organization to think they are?
Absolutely, and it needs to be said. I mean, I worked in the kitchens for 10 years, and you would see sexism and racism almost daily. And it's like, especially in an environment like that, where you're in the same four walls together every day, and you normally do 10 to 15 hours, and you're locked into this hot environment, and it's stressful, and you see this kind of attitude. What was the decision then to leave position for you and move on to do your own thing?
So the way it played out was last year I was working from home because my father got sick in May. Then my father ended up passing away in November. And a week later, they called me and pretty much told me that, you know, they were cutting X amount of jobs. I was one of the jobs that they were cutting. And so I was laid off, but they did give me a severance package and etc., which I'm grateful and I'm thankful to God for them, you know, giving me a package. But however, I'm like, okay, when I think back, I'm like, you just gave me a 20% pay increase a few months earlier. I am definitely meeting my metrics and all of that stuff. So there was so many thoughts that were circling around my head, and it just didn't sit right with my spirit. But you know what? I was grateful and thankful that I spent 7.5 years working for that company. I met a lot of great people, learned a lot of things, but the experiences that I had helped me launch what I'm doing now, which is sharing my story with others, talking about how the trials and tribulations that I endured personally as well as professionally didn't break me. Yes, they were hard times, but they helped me be stronger, wiser. It helped me understand myself more. I also took the skill set that I learned by spending all of that time in a corporate setting, and now I can apply that to my own business and helping other people who are aspiring to do something similar. Another thing that, even though I was laid off, the good thing is laid off is different than being fired. And I felt like God needed to close that door because there's something bigger that I need to be doing out in the world, which is helping people ignite their purpose, fuel their passion, helping them be authentically them. Because nowadays we live in a society where everyone is hidden by a mask and they're trying to compete with other people when really they should be in competition with no one, and they should do what they're passionate about and not looking for ways to one up someone. You could look for ways to build partnerships with other people and know that what you're doing is for you and no one needs to really validate you. Does that make sense, Harry?
Absolutely. No, of course. It's been a discussion over the last couple of days with the people that I've had on, and one of the biggest things is the effect of social media. And I think social media is amazing. It gives you the ability to reach out and to talk to so many different people. It gives us the ability right now to have a conversation where I get to learn and I get to talk to you and I get to talk to so many other amazing people on the podcast. But at the same time, you've got this. There are standards that can never be met. You look online; it doesn't take a minute of scrolling to find these like Instagram kids. You know, have you seen these? They're super rich.
Yes.
And you're looking at pictures of kids on boats, and they're like, well, they're 16 years old, and they're on boats. They've never had to face any kind of trouble, no adversity. There you go. You're old enough now. Have a nice fancy car, and it's like it's very easy to see that and to be very disheartened, especially. But at the same time, there's so many different positives to it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. So what I gathered from what you just said is social media does have its pros and it also has its cons, because we live in an information age, and we also live in an age where everyone wants instant gratification because they see what someone else has, but they don't really know what they did to get to what they have. And just because that person has that thing does not necessarily mean that it's for you. So I would definitely encourage people that are listening to this segment is you have to find what works for you, practice your own self-awareness, your own self-care, and do your own self-inventory. Yes, you can achieve the success that you want, but you have to cultivate where you are now and plant seeds today to secure a better future. And success doesn't happen overnight. Sometimes it takes the hard things in life. It takes those hard experiences, the trials and tribulations that we face in order for us to walk into a place where we really start to see our success manifesting. We start to have those divine interventions, those divine connections. We start to see our bank account go from 0 to whatever number. But it does take hard work and you putting in time to cultivate what you want to build. Because if you think about people who are very successful, Warren Buffett, Steve Jobs, Damon John, the people on Shark Tank, and etc., they all started small, but they didn't give up on their goals, dreams, and visions, and they cultivated it. But they also took measures to prepare themselves for success, and it wasn't easy. So once you have something in mind, make sure you write down your goals, make sure you're measuring your goals and having some accountability so you could get there. Don't just look at somebody and say, oh, I want to do that, but you're not taking any actions to get to where they are, if that makes sense.
Absolutely. It's so easy. This is the thing. I grew up on sort of the boxing sort of scene, so a lot of the time you would doing competitions or being out on shows and stuff like that. You only see the results. You don't see the hard work that goes into the entire build up. So when you're like, if you're watching a boxing show and you look across, there's a guy, he's got a beer and he's drunk and he's shouting to the fighter, "You're a bum." It's like because he got knocked out in the first round. So yeah, but you don't see the work that goes into getting up to that point. You spend hours and hours and hours and hours just sweating, working so incredibly hard. And yeah, you don't always get the result you want. You don't always win, but it's the hard work that goes into that build up. And people don't see that. It's the same thing for the social media. You don't see everything else that builds up. You just hear the stories afterwards. So what goes into being a motivational speaker?
I would definitely say authenticity, being authentic at what you do, living what you're preaching, because people will be watching you behind the scenes, even if you don't know that they're watching you. So whenever I consider myself motivating others, I'm speaking about experiences that I personally endured and witnessed, because that is what's going to be credible. I don't want to give somebody a crock of crap that I'm not living or experiencing myself, because then there will be no validation. The proof will not be in the pudding. So whenever I motivate other people, I'm telling them about things that has happened to and for me, in hopes of them getting out of maybe their mental, physical, and emotional rut, letting them know, hey, I'm an imperfect human being just like you are. I'm working on being a better version of myself daily. It's not easy. Life is a journey. It's a marathon, not a sprint. You're not always going to have, good days. You're going to have some good days and some bad days, but it's about your mindset shift and your perspective and how you react to certain situations. So you could either be proactive or you could react. And it takes time to get to where I am. And there's some days where, I just feel like the Bruno Mars song, Lazy. I just want to lay in my bed all day, and that's perfectly okay because I'm me, and no one can tell me that that's not okay, because you don't know the type of headspace I'm in. You don't know what I'm dealing with. But whenever I show up, I'm going to show up and I'm going to be on, because I know there's other people out there listening that need to hear what I have to say. And if I just touch one person and make one impact, then I've done my job, because you don't know who that person is going to go on to impact, or whose lives that that they're going to change. So it becomes a domino effect. So when I say motivational speaker, some people could say inspirational speaker. Some people could say, oh, she's this speaker or whatever. But there's so many labels. But if you just strip away the labels, I guess my goal is to really help people ignite who they want to be and not what other people want them to be.
Have you spoken to Dawn Bostic by any chance?
I have. I was on her show.
You were on her show. I was about to say, if you hadn't been on her show, you definitely should, because I can hear it. I can hear the passion and the way she speaks, especially. She's incredibly smart. I don't know, incredibly smart's probably the right term. What do you do to better yourself? What do you do daily? What keeps you going?
I pray. I'm very religious and spiritual, so I talk to God. I journal, whether it's journaling in a hard copy notebook or it's journaling in my phone. It's a way for me to get my thoughts out of my head onto paper or onto my electronic notepad. And then whenever I'm in that space where I'm just quiet, I go back to what I wrote so I could reflect on it and I could see how was I feeling at that specific moment? Why did I write this? How is it showing up now? Is this present, and etc. And it's my own way of discerning the things that I've penned. Another thing that helps me is I love music, whether it's Christian hip hop, whether it's reggae music, whether it's blues, jazz. I really like listening to various lyrics because they could speak to you differently depending on what season you're going through, how your day is going, and etc. The music could just jumpstart and ignite you. It could spark something in you. It gives me that creativity that I need. Another thing that I do daily, I started walking. I've been walking with my mom since my dad has passed, and it's a way to just kind of separate myself from social media for maybe an hour to an hour and a half, sometimes even 2 hours, and just clear my thoughts and remove myself from the busyness and etc. And that really just helps me just be grounded and level-headed, because sometimes, the pressures of society can weigh you down, and not everyone is going to support you. Not everyone is going to say good job. So I just took that back and say, you know what? I don't need the validations of other people to let me know that I'm doing something good. I just need the validation and approval of myself and my Heavenly Father to define me. And as long as my family supports me and they love me, my husband, my mom, my dad is no longer here, but he was one of my biggest supporters. These are some of the things that I do daily to help keep me going. And I think we all have different periods of things that we do to help refuel ourselves. I have 3 R's that I like to share. So they are refuel, refocus, and realign. And those 3 R's help me whenever I feel like I'm going low or my energy is being depleted. I just think about the 3 R's that I developed. How are they being present, and how am I showing up given the certain circumstances? And whenever I see that something is off balance and I don't have that full equilibrium, then I need to really rechannel my energy to get myself back in alignment to my core values.
And what's your your walking distance? Well, how far do you go?
So it varies. Some days I'll do 3.18 miles. Another day I did 3.24 miles. It just varies at the time of the day that I go walking, because some days in Texas you never know what the weather's going to be like. So it just
yeah, I've heard that.
It just varies, but I really try to stick to anywhere with 3 miles or more.
Do you do any high intensity? Do you do any other kind of sports?
I was doing HIIT back in 2018 when I was preparing for my wedding, because I wanted to look hot in my wedding dress. Then with this with this pandemic and etc., 2020, I really didn't feel comfortable going to the gym, because it's hard to do HIIT classes, which are the high intensity with a mask on and etc., because you really need to practice your breathing while you're working out to really sustain you. So what I started doing recently with my husband is bike riding.
Oh yeah, bike riding's fantastic. If you've got the space now, you could do HIIT from your living room. That's the thing that I love now. You could literally, I do with on the fitness channel. We at the beginning of the pandemic, we would set up the camera and we would just do classes on Zoom, which is a fantastic way of doing it. I thought that the gyms all closed during the pandemic for you guys, or did they stay open?
So some of the gyms did close, and then some were allowed to reopen back while practicing social distancing and etc.
What sort of music keeps you going? A bit of everything. For me, I was talking about this a little while back. For me, when I'm writing when I'm writing a book, every chapter is music. So every chapter is named after music. That's where I get my inspiration. Most of my stories I get while I'm out running. I'll listen to a certain song and it'll give me that boost, that spark. Does that make sense?
Yes, that makes sense, and I could definitely resonate with that. So some genres that I like are CHH. It's Christian hip hop, so it's clean. It's not it's not derogatory. I like gospel music, a little bit of country music. I recently tapped into some neo soul songs that I really liked. As of yesterday, someone played one and I was like, oh, I really like this vibe. There's so many other musics like reggaeton, which is kind of like, what do you call it? It's Latin, Hispanic mix with rap and all of that type of music. I really like that because then the beat and the vibrations kind of just get you like pumped up, like, yes, let's get it. I guess all music, Harry. I really love music. And then I try to be more...
If you try and be more what, sir?
I try to be more intentional with the musics that I'm selecting lately, especially with the lyrics, because sometimes when you listen to certain things, it feeds your vibration and etc. So I also want to make sure when I'm listening to something, I'm not just listening to it without a reason. I'm listening to it to give myself that inspiration, but also boost my energy and etc. Because in the past, when I would listen to like rap music and hip hop, some of the lyrics, when I would really tune into them, I'm like, I don't like the message that this song is conveying. The beat is great and the beat gets you jumping, but then the lyrics have a negative connotation attached to it. And I'm like, that's not the space that I want to be in my life. So if I do listen to certain like rap or hip hop music, I really try to pay attention to the lyrics that I'm hearing and see if it's aligning with my purpose, because I don't want to go back to BC, before Christ. I'm trying to move forward and be better.
So now because I'm a massive hip hop fan. My don't get me wrong. I love to put on a bit of Tim McGraw or something along them lines. I love a bit of country music, but for me, I always come back down. It's rap music. So who's the Christian hip hop? Who would be the Christian hip hop version of Eminem?
Ooh, Andy Mineo. I like Andy Mineo.
Right, I got that because I need to listen. I've listened to Christian rock, Skillet.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't even know we're a Christian rock band, and they are amazing. I don't know if you've ever listened to them. I think they're fantastic. So I'm more than down to listen to anything. For me, music is my daily thing. I'm not a religious person.
Mm-hmm.
More questions than anything, but for me, music's a thing that is like my everyday.
Okay, I'm definitely gonna have to send you some songs afterwards, and then you send me a few songs that you like. That way we could kind of learn a little bit about each other's music choices and see how it shows up in each one of our lives. I think that would be cool to do it offline.
Bring that on. I would love that. I have a friend. There was a woman I used to work with. She used to send me songs. She used to she'd just completely out of the blue, just randomly be like, oh, I listened to this, think you'll like that, and then I would do the same thing back, and it was this great little, even if sometimes you weren't always talking, you can connect through music. That's what I originally was going to be. One of these podcasts was going to be a place for musicians to come on and to perform and to get a chance to chat and do stuff like that, because I'm not musical in any sense. If you put me, I've got a piano right here, I can't use it but it's always there. It's It's my fiance's, but like but I love listening, so like that's where I'm always at. What's chocolate drop?
So, chocolate drop in corporate America, I guess the reasoning behind the name is that so many people say, oh, she's black or she's African American, and they love to put labels on things. And I'm like, why can't I just be a chocolate drop? Because some people see black as negative. Some people say, oh, there's so many different connotations circling around. And I'm like, when I see myself as, beautiful. I embrace the melon of my skin. So I was like, okay, chocolate. Chocolate is so sweet and irresistible, and you can't just have one bite. And they come in various variations, like milk chocolate, dark chocolate, white chocolate, so many different things, crunchy, smooth, etc. And you just can't have one bite. So I was like, I am that chocolate drop, and I work in corporate America. And the reason why I said chocolate drop is because I was like, if I say Hershey, the Hershey company could come after me and probably sue me, since I don't I don't have the rights or whatever to use that.
Yeah.
And then the subtitle, From the Pit to the Palace, represents that early on in my life, I went through a dark season, but during that dark season, I fell in love with someone. And people said, who did you fall in love with? And I said, I fell in love with myself. I learned how to love me for me, and not based on what other people were saying about me. And I was like, had I not went through depression, had I not went through a dark season where I didn't go to school for 9 days consecutively in high school, when I was the skinniest ever in my life, I was literally a 000. And I was just at the lowest of the low. And I was like, why am I here? Why am I on earth? No, like I'm not valued or whatever. And I had so many negative thoughts of defeat, and I was just emotionless. But what really helped pull me out of that hole was my parents, and was the support system that I had, even though I was trying to shut them out. So the pit represents darkness, but once you get over that darkness, you always see that light illuminates. And when light goes on, it shuns out all the darkness, all the evilness, all the things that are bad. And then you walk into your glory season. You see yourself better. You see the victories. You see the vibration. You see fruitfulness. You see your harvest. You see so many incredible things that are associated with light, goodness, peace, prosperity, all of those things. So that's why I said from the pit to the palace. The palace could represent your personal kingdom. It could represent your personal success. It could represent a physical place, or etc. But all in all, the palace is your personal kingdom, your empire, your legacy that you built upon going through the hard things. The hard things that I went to, they broke me, but they did not break me, if that makes sense, because I made it through. That's why people say breakthrough, because it broke you, but you still made it through.
That's just it, isn't it? It's well, you get out to the other side and you can look back at all the carnage, and you can look back at everything that you made it through. But at the end of the day, if you made it, you made it. And so where are you now? Where are you at? Got all that toxic stuff behind you. What's your plan for the future?
So my plan for the future is to book speaking events and engagements, where I definitely want to take this movement worldwide, where I'm really talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion, how it's prevalent, how it's showing up. I also want to work on social injustice issues, not just for the Black and Brown community, but anyone who has ever been slighted in anyway. And I just really want to say that my heart goes out to all the Asian community who lost a loved one that was, brutally murdered in Atlanta. And I also want to say that my heart aches for the people who recently lost their loved ones in Boulder, Colorado. That was just a hard thing that, so many people are filled with hatred and evilness that they think it's okay to take an innocent person's life for no apparent reason. So that's part of social injustice, is getting people to really see that there is really good and bad in every race. And just because one person does a certain thing, you can't make that one person responsible for an entire race, because we are all different and not all of us are alike. So just because one person does something that's bad does not mean an entire race is bad. And I don't feel like people should target certain races just because of false misnomers. So I just wanted to plug that there. Really striving to do is more consulting, whether I'm consulting in the education field to help younger people see that it is okay to be different. It's okay to partner with other people who are different, who don't have the same cultural backgrounds, who didn't grow up the way you grew up, who don't speak the same language. It's okay to build partnerships with people outside of your comfort zone, because you never know how those people could turn into, your business partners, your lifelong friend, or etc. And I would say never judge a book by its cover, because you never know the gold contents that are inside. No, so I'm just saying, I would say the sky's the limit for me right now, but I definitely want to reach the moon, because people have made it past the sky to the moon. So I'm definitely am open to endless possibilities, and I'm not going to box myself in, but I am still going to keep showing up and be present in the now and working on building, an empire and a legacy, not just for Genesis, but future generations to come. But I definitely do want to ask you 2 questions, Harry, to see how these questions resonate with you.
Bring it on.
So these questions are on the back of my book. What challenges in the workplace have you encountered that left you feeling as if you were mistreated? That's question 1.
Yeah.
Do you want to do them both at the same time or one at a time?
Do you know what? I'll tackle the first one. I'm going to tackle this with the grace and elegance of a gazelle. Okay. Right. I worked in catering for the best part of 10 years. And in that time, I've seen sexism. I've seen racism. I've seen amazing chefs come and go because people in charge are bullies. There are people that are selfish. I'm not an argumentative person by any means. I avoid it if I can. For me, work is work. I like to go in, do my job, come home, see my fiance. I'm very lucky in that sense. So it felt like at a point it was like an almost daily occurrence, and I won't pick any names and I won't pull any stories just in particular, but all I'll say is that the thing that I picked up is that it's for a stressful environment. Now you're going to get shouted at, you're going to get screamed at, you're going to get stuff possibly thrown at you. That's the job, that's catering. You expect that, but there's a fine line between when you're in service and things are going on, and then at the end of the day when everything dies down and it goes quiet. And I spoke about this yesterday, and I won't repeat it too much, but I've probably said this 1,000 times. You've got a choice every day. When something goes wrong, something upsets you, someone pisses you off, someone cuts you up in traffic, you've got a choice, and your actions affect the next person. And you can take that negative energy and you can use it, pass it on, and that will snowball, and eventually that will keep going and going and going. Or you can twist it. You can take that negative energy, you can turn it into something good, and you can be nice, because I promise that will spread more. If you just go in, you do your bit, and you're nice to one person, it will spread. At the end of the day, nothing's more important. We're all in this together. In the pandemic, just in life in general, we didn't ask for it. We didn't ask to pay taxes and to work ridiculous hours, but that's where we are. And that's fine. That's fine. It is what it is. But you have a choice.
Absolutely.
I hope that's okay.
No, I love that answer, because I see how you endured, a working situation that was hostile. And I can resonate with what you're saying, because I didn't share this earlier, but my husband is a chef. So I know all about the catering and etc. And it's not easy, and you could either choose to wear your heart on your sleeve, or you could take the situation at hand and flip it to work for your good, but also to be that change in that present moment where you're saying, okay, I could either react to this situation, or I could do this and allow my light and positive energy to spread like wildfire, or etc. So I just love the way that you articulated that, and I really think that what you answered is going to help someone that listens to this listens to this podcast, maybe today or years from now. You never know how your answer is going to help change and influence someone else. The next question I had for you, Harry, was, have others who were unqualified seemingly pass you by in the ranks? And how did it make you feel if you were that person that was looked over, you were passed up, and then they turn around and say, Harry, you were underqualified, you were overqualified, but this is your new colleague, and I'm going to need you to train them.
Yeah, I had that on 2 occasions, and the thing that stuck out with me the most is I won't say his name, but the member of staff at the time was the one that pushed for it. Oh yeah, no, I need you got to go for that position, and I never cared about positions, and all the time I've been working, for me, work, just happy to do my job, but it was, you need to apply. So fine, okay, I'll do it, and I got rejected almost immediately. Not an issue. It's fine. Apply again. No, but they rejected me. No. I've got your back. I've spoke to management. I want you to apply. Applied again, and they rejected me again. It's not a no. We're just going to go in a different direction. Hired someone straight out of college. That's completely fine. I can handle that. Thing is, bad things are going to happen every day. You have an opportunity when these bad things happen to improve, to get better, to move on to the next thing, because everything does happen for a reason. What annoyed me was at the end, when I spoke to management and they said, no, he told us not to hire you. He told us not to take the position. Now, that's someone that is deeply depressed in their own life, someone that goes out of their way to not just put someone down, but to go out their way to that level, to actually want someone to experience that kind of rejection. I've been there. But you can't, these things happen, and they're always going to happen. What's the more important is how you react to it. I left catering after about 10 years, and I left on the best possible terms. I left when I wanted to leave. I love cooking, I love eating, I just don't love doing it for a job. It's what you take away from it, and you have an opportunity when these things happen to improve, to get better. That's how I see it.
That is so beautiful, Harry, because you didn't allow that toxic individual to keep you down. You left on the best possible terms, so you didn't burn any bridges, and you did what was right for you during that particular moment and season, because in life we all go through various seasons, but during the seasons that we go through, it's so important that we learn the lessons, and there's always a reason for the season that we're in. So I'm so glad that those 2 questions were relatable for you, because even though we're from different backgrounds, we're from different industries, you could see how these 2 questions are very prevalent no matter what industry you're in, no matter what race you are, no matter what your culture is, or etc. It shows that diversity, equity, and inclusion, there is a way to connect the dots once you approach it with a particular mindset and you have that perspective around it, and you're open-minded, you're not closed off. And the fact that you left catering after 10 years. So you did your due diligence. You paid your dues. You did your justice. But whenever you felt like you were complete and you felt like this is no longer for me, you left, and that's okay. And you're now probably doing something that you absolutely love. You're in an area where you're thriving. You have a podcast, and you're doing incredible things to help people along the way. Whether you're helping people that you know or you're helping people that you don't know, your experiences that you face, Harry, were not a mistake. They didn't happen by accident, and everything is working out for your good.
And we are going to have to wrap it up here. Genesis, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for jumping on. You can jump to the description below and find our Patreon if you want to support us. If not, that's all good. Just jump over and give us a like on Facebook. That's also lovely. Genesis, where can people find you?
I'm on Facebook. You can find me at Genesis, that's Genesis, Amaris, Amaris, last name Kemp, Kemp. I'm on Instagram under Genesis Amaris Kemp. You could also email me at genesisamarisKemp@gmail.com. And I thank you so much, Harry, for having me on your show. I'll send you some links so you can put in the show notes if you want. And if anyone is interested in getting a copy of the book, they could also find my book on Amazon, the first and second edition.
Thank you so much, and I hope I get a chance to talk to you again soon.
Thank you.